So wanted to talk today about the next generation document capture with Ephesoft 3.0. This Ephesoft 3.0 is going to be GA as of tomorrow. My name is Pat Myers. I'm the Executive Vice President. I'm the principal of the capture practice here at Zia Consulting. So let's proceed. First, I want to talk to you about the agenda today. We're going to talk a little bit about Zia Consulting and Ephesoft, and then we're going to spend most of our time going over the Ephesoft 3.0, just new features. There's over 100 new features. We're going to go over the ones that are the most exciting ones, at least ones that I find the most exciting. And we're going to demo those capabilities, show you inside of the beta version that I have, how those are reflected inside of the user interface and functionality. And then we're going to talk a little bit about why Ephesoft Enterprise. A lot of people, when they talk about a Community Edition and an Enterprise Edition, I'm not really sure about the differences between those, so we're going to touch on that. Then we're going to speak to a little bit about Ephesoft training and certification. Then we're going to talk a little bit about an application that Zia wrote called Insight for Ephesoft, which is an advanced reporting tool that we created for Ephesoft. And then we'll open it up for general questions and answers. So who are we? Who is Zia? Our main focus is from paper to mobile, and so we create solutions for going all the way from intelligent document capture like Ephesoft to enterprise content management like Alfresco, portal solutions, to enterprise integration of these, and enterprise mobility, being able to present these inside of your iPad, iPhone, Android devices. We were just awarded one of the Colorado companies to watch for 2012 as well. Our partnerships, they include a number of different partnerships from Ephesoft and Alfresco, in which we were just announced as Partner of the Year for both of those, as well as having some legacy the year before we got a Alfresco Solution of the Year. We're also partners with WeWebU that give us the capability of being able to do transactional content management, and that works with in conjunction with Alfresco. LifeRay for portal solutions, and MuleSoft for our integration. We also have products. So one of the things that I mentioned before is we have Insight for Ephesoft, which is the advanced reporting tool, and we're going to go through some of the functionality and demonstrations later on in the presentation. We also have Fresh Project for Alfresco, which is an add-on functionality to Alfresco Share. It gives you the capability of being able to templatize sites, so security, look and feel, folders, wikis, everything that's pretty much inside of a site. Being able to create templates for those sites and create instances of those sites. And some of the newer functionality that we just came up with is Microsoft Project integration. What we mean by integration is it's round trip, and so what you can do is when you import a Microsoft project, then you're able to create Gantt charts and also be able to create the completion and assignment dashlets inside of Alfresco. And when you make modifications inside of the dashlets with completion or assignment, well, next time you check out that project file, that will be reflected inside of the Microsoft project file. We also created Alfresco Mobile, which was initially created from our FreshDocs application, which gives you the capability of mobily accessing your Alfresco repository, and FreshDocs also is compliant with a number of content management systems. We're also currently working on Mobile Workdesk with WeWebU, which will bring their Open Workdesk product to the mobile devices. We're creating a Mule Ion application, which is going to be for invoice, essentially AP, accounts payable solution that on the back end we'll be using Ephesoft and Alfresco. And we created the Denver 311 application, so you're able to report everything from having a pothole to a loose dog from your device, giving pictures, giving GPS coordinates. From these solutions, we created, we have a number of verticals, ranging from everything from state, local, federal, to financial services, to mobile publishing, to higher education, to healthcare, pretty much everything that's we have little pictures here to show you, but it's this and more. I mean, because we have entertainment, we have solutions ranging from pretty much every vertical that can deal with content. So we want to take a moment just to talk about what is Ephesoft, how does it work, just for those to give a brief understanding for those that have not used it. So what you can do is you can get your source images from a number of ways, whether that be something that you scanned in, something that was emailed in, something that was faxed in, something that you already have a file for. And then you're able to train the system, once you have those samples, to learn those categories, to understand the document types that you have. Once you train the system, then you're able to pass all of those various images through the system, and then be able to not only classify those documents, but assemble them. So you have a lot less pre-processing. So instead of having to create separator sheets and creating barcodes to have a system understand what kind of documents are going through the system, you can have your mailroom essentially just scan in documents and let the system take over and understand them. Once that classification occurs, then you can require the appropriate index information that you want from those documents. So let's get into the interesting stuff. What's new in Ephesoft 3.0? So what's new in Ephesoft 3.0 is a number, and some of the best things that are coming from it is just the amount of functionality that's coming in from being able to administrate your Ephesoft system directly from the user interface. As those have played with 2.x before 2.0, I mean 2.5, 2.4, 2.3, you know that there is a certain need for being able to have access to the file system for some of the administration purposes. So let's go ahead and start talking about that. So inside of the first thing I want to talk about is folder management. So folder management allows the batch class administrators to update and add files to the batch class without needing a system access. There's a couple reasons why this is exciting. Number one, that you don't need that file, the file server access, or the server access. But you're also able to have a SaaS model where you can actually create, you can specify a particular role that's going to have administration rights on a particular batch class, and then they would only be able to see that particular batch class, the configuration. So inside of the folder management, which is a new tab here, right now I'm logged in as an administrator, so I can see everything. So I can update batch class information. I can do various, I can get into the scripts of any of my batch classes. I'm able to, when I go inside of something with a particular document, then I can upload new files. I can download those files and be able to get all of my testing, extraction testing documents directly inside of Ephesoft without having to go to the server to place those files. So the next thing I wanted to talk about, oh, and one other thing that I want to mention, if there is a particular individual that would only have access to a particular batch class, then they would only see those batch classes and available for them to administrate. So they would see much more of this kind of view, where they would be able to see that particular batch class and be able to upload the sample files, particular configuration files, script files, directly from the user interface. The next thing I want to talk about is workflow administration. So workflow administration is, sorry, apparently I'm still logged into something. Workflow administration is the capability that gives you a lot more flexibility within the workflow that Ephesoft is processing the documents. So you're able to configure a particular batch class definition, to have the plugins in not only the plugins that you want, but the order that you want it. So the workflow administration, if we go ahead and look at it inside of the user interface, I can see the plugins that I have inside of the system. So it's quite a bit of plugins, and from here I can see the dependencies of those plugins, or I can add new plugins. So when I add a new plugin, I can specify, essentially create this this zip file, and inside of the zip file it can have a piece of custom code, and it can have the dependencies and also the properties that are shown inside of the batch class management defined, and then I would be able to include those inside of the batch class definition, and we'll see that just in a moment. So that leads to the next item of the batch class plugin configuration. So the batch class plugin configuration, you can add, delete, move plugins, and add modules. So modules are just containers for plugins. So you can add as many as you want. This can be used for custom plugins or remove plugins that are not used. So by removing plugins, you can optimize a particular workflow or batch class definition to be exactly what you need. So you can start getting a faster throughput of a particular batch class. So if we take a look at that inside of the batch class management, you can see I have this new configure button that will let me, if I go inside of one of the plugins, let's say we're going to the export plugin, I can start configuring this, and then I can see that I may not use an IBM content management plugin, so I can remove that from my particular instance or my batch class definition. And then once I save that, I can actually validate that and deploy that information, deploy that workflow. And then it would not try to enter that particular plugin. And if I had a custom plugin, that would be displayed there, and then I can add that particular plugin. And if I had information that I wanted to pass on to my plugin, in this case, this is something that we'll be going over in just a little bit, which is the database export capabilities. I can put these particular pieces of information as properties, and I can create various drop-downs or text fields according to what I want my plugin to be able to handle or retrieve. So there's a new batch class administration role, and so what this means for those that are familiar with it is that you can create essentially a system administration role, and then the system administration role will have access to all the batch classes, to all the batch instances on the system, where now you can create this new batch class administration role, and so you can have them just look at or administrate particular batch classes. And also see batch instances of those batch classes. What this means between this and some of the functionality that you have within the folder management, you now have the capability of having more of a SaaS model within your Ephesoft instance. So then you start passing off to whether it be a department that they're responsible for particular batch classes and would only see batch instances that were part of those batch classes. Or if you wanted to create a service out to the world and be able to pass off, essentially create that for various companies and have an Ephesoft instance be able to process that. The next thing is the fuzzy database enhancements. And we can go ahead and take a look at that. One of the biggest, for those that are not familiar with fuzzy database enhancements, the way that it worked prior to this version 3.0 is that, and many people are still going to use it in this fashion, is that it would take all the words on a page, on a document, and then it would compare all the words on that document to rows inside of a database, and then try to find the best match. Now there's the capability of being able to add the column search. So I can say that I want to extract information and compare that extracted information to the rows inside of the database. And so a good instance of that is if I was to pick up, let's say, an invoice number. And that invoice number is something that I can extract from a particular invoice. And then I wanted to look up the best bill to address from a database. And then I want to persist that information to another index field called the bill to field inside of that particular instance. It will default, so if it doesn't find it, to the native behavior, which will look at all words inside of the document and then compare it to the database if it cannot find that particular search. They made a lot of enhancements to the table extraction functionality. For those that are familiar with the previous table extraction functionality, you were able to create definitions based on essentially regular expressions. So you can put a start and a stop word at the beginning of the table or regular expression of the table. And then you were able to, and let me get in here really quick, and then you're able to specify essentially the patterns inside of the table. So you know how it was represented next to another representation. So a regular expression for a dollar amount, and that was next to a regular expression for a part number, and that part number is 7 characters. Now you can do a number of advanced type of table extractions. So now I can pick and choose how I want to retrieve my information from column coordinates. So if I have a fixed form and I know that there's a particular area in which I want to look for a particular column, or I can look for the column header, or I can use the regular expression capabilities. I think that for most people they're going to use it in combination of the column header or a regular expression to be able to retrieve the most out of the extraction. And of course, you know, I would be able to create the Boolean logic between these various definitions. So we also have extraction rule creation improvements, and I'm pretty excited about this. So some of the extraction improvements. Number one, if you're familiar with the advanced extraction that was available prior to version 3.0, there was a couple things that made you click more than you may want to. One of them, hold on one sec, sorry. One of them is if you had to create, if you're editing a advanced rule, that you would have to reload the sample that you brought into the system. Now it will remember not only the sample, but the coordinates in which were used in the last sample. And so it will also have the capability of testing the rule directly inside the advanced extraction rule creation screen. So I'd be able to see the results without having to back out and then come back in to edit that information. Also, if I wanted to use an existing field for a key, then I could use that existing field based on another rule that I created. If you're using the web scanner, one of the things that you had noticed is that it had a single definition for how you're using the web scanner. So if you're setting a particular DPI, or if it was a color scan as opposed to a black and white scan, that was a single file that was used on the server or set on the server, in which would be used for all web scanning. Now you see this new web scanning capability for being able to define that within a batch class. So not only can I define it within a batch class, but I can set up multiple profiles for a batch class. And so that would be represented. I don't have a scanner tied to my machine right now, but it would be represented inside of the web scanner utility for being able to see what profile I selected, and then be able to select the various ones and then do that particular scan to the batch class with that profile selected. And you can set up those as many as you want per batch class. All right. So we have another page because there's done a lot of improvements in version 3.0. Some of the other web scanner improvements is now not only can you define those various profiles, but you can now enable or disable the auto refresh feature on a system-wide level. Right now it's typically off, and you would have to switch it on every single time you went inside of the web scanner. And I think it's pretty useful to be able to see those thumbnails be shown as soon as they're available, as opposed to having to press the refresh button. If you're having a very high-speed scanner, it may make sense not to use something to that effect. That way you're not waiting for it, and then you can just press refresh after a while. But that's a huge improvement in my opinion. And one of the other things is that the select scanner, which confused some people, is going to be moved to another location. So you would only, it doesn't display in such a way that it makes you think that you need to set it every single time that you access the web scanner. One of the things that we're not demoing today, but I want to speak to, is the Web Services API. So this is pretty exciting because it's at least the only product or IDC product that I know about with an actual API involved with it. This is only available for the Platinum subscribers, but essentially you can use RESTful calls to do a bunch of different actions, and those actions can include, OCRing a TIFF file, classifying a document, extracting from a document, restarting a batch, adding roles in real time to a batch instance identifier so you can have it dynamically pick who's going to be working on that, and then import and export capabilities of batch classes. So what this means is if you don't want it to expose Ephesoft at all or the user interface, you can actually create applications around Ephesoft's logic or Ephesoft's core to be able to use the power of all this, the intelligent document capture inside of your tool or your integrated tool. The next piece, in which was not included in my beta version, so I can't show it to you, but I can describe it to you, is a CMIS import capability. For those that are not familiar with the term CMIS, it's Content Management Interoperability Services. And so what that, some people are familiar with that are familiar with Ephesoft, because a lot of people use it as an export capability, being able to push information inside of a content repository. However, now what you can do is you can set up a batch class to monitor particular folders in a repository, and then it's going to look for a property at a certain value. So it might have a custom property saying, process in Ephesoft set to true, and when it sees that occur, then it's going to bring that inside of Ephesoft, and then you can set something immediately, set that property to false, and then it would process then, and then you can have your logic that would then have the UID for that particular object, then update when it comes back inside of Ephesoft. So really neat feature there for some people that already have information inside of their content repository and still want to process it, whether it be classification or extraction. The next piece that's coming out with SharePoint, with Ephesoft 3.0 is a SharePoint enhancements, or the CMIS export is now compliable with the SharePoint CMIS implementation. They had a few differences between the OASIS standard, and so now for those that are interested in SharePoint or releasing into SharePoint, that is working. Some of those that have that are knowledgeable with Ephesoft know that when you're pushing information, especially if you're using the batch, the copy batch export capability, that it has this naming convention of the batch identifier or the batch class instance, and also the document inside of the batch class. Now you can actually use metadata that is extracted to rename the files when you export them from the copy XML export. There's also a new database export, which we touched on briefly, which gives you the capability of mapping extracted data from Ephesoft and pushing it directly inside of a database, whether that be SQL Server or MySQL, whatever you're using for being able to populate either a custom application or just a custom database. There's also some auto-learning enhancements. They have the capability now of being able to learn off of a couple words. For those that are not familiar with it, the auto-learning capability is a last step inside of the workflow, the mailroom automation workflow. And what it can do is if there's an operator that actually clicked on a value as opposed to something being extracted automatically, then it can kind of look around in the area of where that value was and look for particular keywords and regular expressions, and then be able to create a extraction rule from that action of an operator. And so now it can create more precise rules because it can use multiple keys when it finds multiple keys. And finally, installer enhancements. And so now the installer, not only will it, some of the, if you've installed using the installer for MySQL, you notice there are some strangeness where like the MySQL would pop up in the back and you needed to finish that off before you completed your Ephesoft installation. Also, if you're using SQL Server, then there was essentially you just bypass that entire configuration in the installation, and then you did some configuration, and then you started your server after you did your configuration. Now that's all part of the installer. So large improvements inside of creating an installer that is more wizard-like and more intuitive. So that pretty much covers our Ephesoft 3.0 changes that I wanted to cover today. So now we're just going to go ahead and go right into why Ephesoft Enterprise, because that is a question that I've been asked many times. Number one is that you have quality assurance, and so there is not only quality assurance, but that support that's embedded inside of having the Enterprise version. The version that comes out, they tell you what is the accepted platforms, what are the accepted browsers, they've been tested, vetted. You can select support contracts that are 8x5 or 24x7, depending on if you want to go gold or platinum. Another reason to go Enterprise is the OCR engine that's used in the Enterprise version. So the community version uses Tesseract, and the Enterprise version uses RicoStar. And because it uses RicoStar, or at least what I found in my experience is that I've had much better OCR results. And because it uses RicoStar, you also have the capability of doing ICR and OMR extraction. What that means is that if you had an area in which you wanted to pick up some handwriting, or if you had a checkbox in which you wanted to make sure that you indexed that if it was checkboxed or not, or even if you wanted to do something like make some logic that verifies that on the sign-on line that there was something there. You may not know if it's a particular signature or not, but that something was signed in that area. RicoStar gives you that capability. And, of course, upgrade support. And last but most importantly, access to certified partners like Zia Consulting. So people that actually have been certified inside of the utility, we cannot work within the community version. And so your chances of success increase exponentially. The next thing I want to talk about is Ephesoft training and certification. The next training that we're going to be having, which I'll be part of as well, is going to be in Irvine, September 18th through the 20th. So go ahead and go to the Ephesoft.com site if you're interested, and you can register there for that next training class. And we should have another one by the end of the year, and I think that we're going to have one. We're planning one perhaps in the UK as well. One of the things that I wanted to point out that I forgot about is that the web scanner is not available within the community version as well, so that's yet another reason to go Enterprise. And the API as well at that note. If you want or need on-site training, or you wanted to come out to Boulder to get some training, just talk to us, inquire, and we'll let you know what that looks like. The next thing I wanted to talk about is Insight for Ephesoft. Insight for Ephesoft is something that we developed for classification, assembly, and extraction reporting. And we're going to go ahead and show what exactly that means. It gives the capability of doing drill down reporting, so you can start at a very high level to figure out what's going on, where there are clicks. So our initial implementation of Insight is so you can figure out where people are spending their time, whether it be that they're doing classification corrections or if they're having to extract manually. And be able to drill down from a grid-like information, a tabular information, or graphically. And you can export that data in case you want to crunch those numbers in some other utility. But let's go ahead and take a look at that. So you can see here there's a number of reports starting with this correction report, and then you can either pick a specific report, and these properties will change dynamically depending on the report that you want. And then you can select some sort of date range. And so in here I'm just going to select a date range. It's kind of wide. And you can see that we have this running on a cloud instance right now for those that are interested in cloud. So I can kind of see at either a table level what's going on with my system given that range. So we have it broken down inside of what's known as a document correction and a field correction. And then you can see that we can also view it from a table-like structure, and we can drill down in that same fashion. Well, let's say we're interested in some of the document correction. So inside of the document correction, we break that down even further, and you can see that now we're inside of a document correction report given the particular set of time. And so we're looking at here classification corrections, separation corrections, unnecessary reviews, and false positives. Let's start with the last because that's the most important. A false positive means that your system was confident that a document was a particular type, and it kind of fell through validation, and it so happens that somebody at validation caught that that was incorrect. So that's your big alert for saying, okay, my system's doing something automatically incorrectly. So that's the first thing that you're going to fix. The rest are around saving time. So a classification correction is legitimate. Somebody came in and they had something in a review state, and inside of that review state, they saw that as one document type and they changed it to another document type. Separation corrections means that there was something wrong with the wrong with the assembly or corrected the assembly. So somebody did a split or a merge or a duplication, and then because of that, it changed the document itself. An unnecessary review, sometimes that's the low-hanging fruit. An unnecessary review means that it came inside of a review state. Inside of the review state, nobody changed it, they just saved it and they pushed it forward. So that means that there might be something that you could do with a threshold or retraining of the system because there's a different format of a particular document, and that way you can get rid of that operator click. If I go inside of any one of these, as I can drill down further, I can see that this was a 1040. It was changed to a 1040 SF. Its confidence score was 34. Its threshold was 30. We can drill down even further to figure out who was it that was, the reviewer or validator on that particular document. At any one point, you're going to see that this breadcrumb is created. So I can back up. I can look at the document itself, look at the various pages that were part of that document, what the confidence scores and what it thought was a first page or a last page. So the information is, I think this is pretty intuitive to individuals and find it in its values. It's very similar within the extraction, where I can look down to see, okay, this last name was changed 489 times, and there was, looks like a number value, some sort of social security that was pulled out initially, and then it was changed to a name. You also can export this data. So if I wanted to export this for some sort of status meeting that I was going to have, it can be exported to a CSV file and then opened in whatever or imported into a tool. While we're here, one of the things that I did not mention is there's some modifications inside of the batch list and batch review as well. So some people wanted the capability of understanding a little bit more around what the documents were. Before, what you would see in version 2.x is that you would just see doc 1, doc 2, but you wouldn't see what type of document it is. So now there's the capability of seeing what kind of a document it is. And another thing that I just remembered, which I think is super cool, is when you're inside creating an advanced rule, there was a lot of guessing into like, okay, well, why didn't that particular rule extract anything? Somebody's not picking that up. I think it's, hold on, I think I lost my session. So it may be that you had a key and it's not pulling that information when you run your test. Now you can right mouse click over a value and you can actually see what the OCR value is for that area. So something like here, if you had it a key and you're like, well, it says staff mark, why didn't it come up? Well, no, it OCR'd as stack arc. So now we can go back to the presentation. the other few things that I wanted to touch on is that if you're interested in Ephesoft in the cloud, either a SaaS offering or a private cloud, let us know that. That's something that we can implement, help you with. Also, our book, pretty much, we've been working in conjunction with the CTO of Ephesoft, Ike, on this book, and it's going to be released sometime in September. Right now, it's available on PactPub as pre-release in case you want it. It's a pretty good sale price right now for the pre-sale. But in any case, just search for Ephesoft on PactPub.com, and you'll be able to find that document. It's going to give a lot of the information on what we're touching on here, how to implement it. It's going to kind of take you all the way from the groundworks of what document capture is all the way to advanced stuff like RecoStar reporting or integration pieces for integrating an external application inside of Ephesoft directly. So on that note, I want to open it up to questions. Can people please type in any questions that they have right now, and we'll answer them if you have any right now. Well, it looks like I'm totally clear on what I've done. So on that note, I think that we can go ahead and conclude this webinar. And I want to thank everybody for attending. And if you do have any questions, please reach me at pat@ziaconsulting.com if you think of something that you want to do later. I did get one other question around Abby. Right now, there's been some discussion with Ephesoft on support of Abby as on the back-end OCR, but right now that's not available. And that was the only question that we've had as of yet. So, like I said, reach out to us if you have any questions in the future, and thank you for attending this webinar. Have a great day.